Hi everyone, Mr. Kranz here, and this is going to be lesson 1.1 for Algebra 2. So what we're going to be looking at today is basically how do we evaluate uh, different expressions. And the key to this is using what's called the order of operations. And we're all pretty familiar with this because we've done it in middle school, we did it in Algebra 1, we did it in geometry, so let's just go ahead and review this. It's a nice, easy way to get into this class without overloading anyone. So if everyone recalls, there was an acronym, right? It was called PEMDAS, right? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which was parentheses, exponents, multiplication or division, whichever came first, addition or subtraction, whichever came first. All right, this has it as GEMDAS, meaning grouping symbols. We just call them parentheses, but it could be any of those different bars, okay? It could be parentheses, it could be brackets, it could be these other type of squiggly bars or fraction bars, okay? So any of those count as parentheses, and they tell us where to start. So let's go ahead and look at number 1. When we evaluate number 1, we can see that according to our order of operations, we're going to start with parentheses. Do we have parentheses? Well, we do. So that means we go ahead and we look at what's inside the parentheses only. Once we're inside the parentheses, in this little world of parentheses, so we're only looking at 11 minus 2 cubed with a closed parenthesis. Once inside the parentheses, we say, hey, are there any parentheses inside the parentheses? There are not. So then we evaluate, we go ahead and we look at exponents. Is there an exponent? There sure is, a cubed. Remember what cubed means? It's 2 times 2 times 2. So that is 8. So this, in parentheses, actually becomes 11 minus 8. Is there anything else to do in these parentheses besides addition or subtraction? So there isn't. There's no other parentheses. There's no exponents, no multiplication, no division. So we do addition or subtraction, and that gets us 3. So we know that this highlighted area, without this, is just a 3. So that gets us 29 minus 3 plus 6 squared divided by 4. All right, so we've gone ahead and taken care of that. So now we go ahead and restart our process. Are there any parentheses here? There are not. Any exponents? Sure, there's a 6 squared. Well, what does 6 squared get us? That gets us 36. So now we have 29 minus 3 plus 36 divided by 4. Every time we write our steps, we go ahead through our checklist again. We start and we say, hey, are there any parentheses? There are not. So now we go ahead and we look, are there any exponents? No exponents. Any multiplication or division? Well, I see subtraction, addition, oh look, division. So that means we're just going to go ahead and we are going to work on just this division. So 36 divided by 4 gets us 9. So it's 29 minus 3 plus 9. Since all that's left is addition and subtraction, all we're going to do is just go in order. 29 minus 3 is 26 plus 9, and 26 plus 9 is 35. And that's our answer. So this expression just boils down to 35. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 2. Number 2, notice when we look here, we're looking for parentheses, things like that, absolute value, any kind of bars or parentheses. So when I see this, right, I go ahead and I zero in on this absolute value. Now, what is absolute value if you don't remember? Absolute value just means how far is something from 0. So in this case, when we look at the absolute value of negative 8, so how far is negative 8 from 0? Well, when we have a number line, you have a -1, -2, right? -3, -4, ... That means keep going to -8. Well, obviously, that would be 8 spaces away. So this absolute value of -8 is just 8. So we can go ahead and replace -8 with just an 8 and get rid of those bars. So that'll get us 4 cubed minus this right here, which is now just 8, times 6 divided by 16. Great. So now we can go ahead and reset. We look, any other parentheses or grouping symbols? There is not. Well, exponents, sure. We have 4 times 4 times 4, right? 4 cubed. Well, what is 4 cubed? Well, 4 times 4 is 16, because when we look at it, 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 equals 64. So this 4 cubed is now 64 minus 8 times 6, all divided by 16. All right, we reset again. No more parentheses, no more exponents, multiplication or division. So how do we tackle multiplication or division? Because you see we have a multiplication right here and division right there. Well, we go from left to right. As we go through here, we notice that the first time we encounter multiplication or division would be this 8 times 6. So we're going to go ahead and we're not even going to use that negative sign in front of the 8. We're just going to do 8 times 6. So what does that get us? That gets us 48. So that gets us 64 minus 48 divided by 16. All right, let's reset our process again. Parentheses, no parentheses. Exponents, no. Multiplication or division, sure. We have division right there. So now we have to handle our division. And 48 divided by 16 is 3. So that gets us 64 minus 3, which is going to be 61. So we're going through this process. Right? Obviously, if you're familiar with this, you can go ahead and work ahead a little bit and see what you wind up and see if it matches my answers. You can always put me on pause. All right, number 3. We got a lot going on here. All right, we have grouping symbols, we have fraction bars, we have absolute value, we have parentheses, exponents. All right, so what we're going to do is we have to look at this and kind of deal with it. And the way I like to deal with it, fractions are the top of the fraction, the bottom of the fraction. So let's just deal with the top of the fraction. All right, so I have a 7 minus, parenthesis, absolute value of 10 minus 12 plus 5 squared, all in a parenthesis. So what we have to do first is we have to deal with just our parentheses, right? Because it's always where we start, right? The outside grouping. See how everything in here is grouped into it? So we're going to go with that first. So over here, I'm just going to write, we have the absolute value of 10 minus 12 plus 5 squared. That's what we're dealing with. So now within our parentheses, you notice that we have some absolute values or something else that's grouping things together. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to deal with that first. All right? When we deal with that first, what does that get us? Well, that just gets us 10 minus 12 is what? -2. So that would mean that we have the absolute value of -2 plus 5 squared, all in these big parentheses. So now, what is the absolute value of -2? Well, how far is -2 from 0? Well, the answer is 2. So this now becomes 2 plus 5 squared. We deal with our parenthesis, giving us 2 plus 25, which ultimately, in our parenthesis, gives us 27. So we're going to replace this whole thing with 27. All right, just so we're sure on what we're working on here, we're working on, oops, it's not the wrong color. We're working on this. Great. All right, so now that is 27, and this will come down. So we have 7 minus 27 all over 9 minus 2 squared. Well, 7 minus 27, what is that? That's going to be -20. So this is now, right, we'll go ahead and we'll rewrite this over here. So this is -20 divided by, our fraction bar is divided by negative 2 squared. All right, so we went ahead and we dealt with the top of the fraction, and that's simplified as far as it can go. So now let's go ahead and look at the bottom of the fraction, right? So we'll do that over here. When we look at that, we have 9 minus 2 squared. We do exponents first, giving us 9 minus 4, which is just 5. So we know that this right here is just going to be 5. So let's just call that 5. And this fraction bar, that just means division. So now that we've simplified this where we have nothing going on in the numerator or the top and nothing going on in the denominator or the bottom, we can just go ahead and divide negative 20 divided by 5. Well, a negative divided by a positive, different signs always gets us negative, right? And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that gets us our answer of 4. All right, so we've kind of gotten that far. All right, let's do number 4 together, and then you'll do 5 and 6 on your own, and then you can come and check it. Now we're going to go a little bit faster without as much highlighting. So we're going to deal with the top of this fraction first, right? That numerator. Right, so let's do that just over here. We have 2 minus 3 squared, all in parentheses, squared, plus the square root of 81. All right, so square roots are basically like division for the most. You can treat it like division or multiplication. I mean, they're almost like grouping symbols as well. You can just kind of get it out of the way. I guess you would deal with that first. So anyway, as I go, I see I have parentheses. Now, the parentheses are just this 2 minus 3 squared. I can take care of my 3 squared. So that'll give me 2 minus 9 all squared plus the square root of 81. 2 minus 9 is negative 7 all squared plus the square root of 81. Negative 7 times negative 7, that is a positive 49 plus the square root of 81. The square root of 81 is just 9 because 9 times 9 is 81. So 49 plus 9 gets me 58. Right, so the top of my fraction is 58. So we'll just put this over here. Now we deal with the bottom. Bottom is pretty simple. 10 minus 6 divided by 3, we take care of our division first, so it gives us 10 minus 2, which is just going to be 8. So now we have 58 divided by 8. When you type that into your calculator, you get a fraction, a decimal, right? With lots of little leftovers. We're not putting things in decimal form. We're leaving them in fractions, all right? Simplest form. See where it says simplify each expression as your directions? So we're going to simplify it, meaning we're not going to put it in a irrational number. When you have decimals, lots of decimals, like for instance, when I go ahead and I put this 58 divided by 8, right? I get 7.25, which is a nice, neat number. But what if it was like 7.25, 3, 6, 4, 9, 8, and just kept going? Well, even if I rounded it to just this, that is not the exact answer. So it's just an estimate. So we have to get used to just leaving things in simplified fraction. Now, when I go ahead and I look at 58 divided by 8, I notice that, 2 can go in both. So if I divide both of them by 2, because they're even numbers, that gets us 29 over 4. Well, now 29 is odd, 4 is even. So there's only a couple of numbers that can go into both. In this case, there aren't any. So that's going to be our answer, is 29 divided by 4, or 29 over 4. That's our simplest answer. Now, I know it just took 15 minutes to do 4 problems, but I figured if I went a little slower in this part, I can go a little faster in the other parts, and it won't be as bad. So why don't you work on 5 and 6, put me on pause, and come back and double check your answers. I'm going to work it out real fast. So, all right. So I'm going to deal with my top first, my numerator, right? So I have 15 minus, parenthesis, square root, negative 6 plus 2, the absolute value, plus square root of 9, all in parentheses squared. So I deal with my parentheses first. I have to deal with my absolute value. Negative 6 plus 2 gets me negative 4. So now I'm dealing with the absolute value of negative 4 plus the square root of 9, which is 3. And right, that's all squared. And that should be in a bracket. And all of this is still in a bracket. Then I go ahead, I deal with my absolute value of negative 4, which is just 4. So now I have 15 minus 4 plus 3, all in a bracket, all squared. 4 plus 3 is 7. So now I have 15 minus 7 in a bracket and squared. 15 minus 7, right, is 8. All in a bracket, all squared. And 8 squared is 64. All right, so now I have 64. That is my numerator. So let's deal with this, right? So this just equals 3 minus 9, which equals negative 6. So now I have 64 over negative 6. Excuse me. That's cubed, not squared, right? So that's 27. 3 minus 27. And 3 minus 27 is a negative 24. All right, so now when I simplify this, I have to figure out what goes into both. Well, we know that 4 goes into both, so if I divide both by 4, right, simplifying by 4, I get 8 over nope, that doesn't work either. Let's divide it by 8. 8's a bigger one. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and see what happens when we do 4, because lots of people like using smaller numbers to start with. Well, 4 goes into 64 16 times. And this is all negative, right, because that negative sign. And that goes in 6. Well, we know 2 goes into both of these, so that will get us 8 over 3, or negative 8/3. All right, so number 6, we go ahead. I will deal with the top of, see over here, we know this is just going to be a 5, right? So whatever we end up with this fraction, we're just going to subtract 5. So when I deal with the top, I have 9 minus 15 squared times 7 minus 2 squared. 9 minus 15, that's going to be a negative 6, all squared, right? And times 7 minus 2 squared, well, 2 squared is 4. Negative 6 squared is 36 times 28. Oh, I'm sorry. Oops, it's a minus times 3, and that gets me 108. So 108 is my numerator. Square root of 49 is 7. 7 plus 5 is 12. And we're going to minus 5 when we're done. All right, 108 divided by 12 is 9, and 9 minus 5 equals 4. All right, so I hope you were able to work those out. Couple of different ways to write it. It's all up to you. All right, evaluating expressions. So evaluating expressions just is another word for saying, hey, let's solve this and substitute some values in, right? Evaluating just means solving. Okay, so no matter which way you do this, it just means, hey, we're going to go ahead and we are going to solve this. So this says number 7 is a times b squared over c plus 12. I know, right? It has letters now. Where did these letters come from, right? Those are called our variables. So it gives us values right over here. So we're just going to replace them. So wherever we see an A, we're going to put a 3. See, that'll be 3. Wherever I see a B, I put a negative 4. I'm going to put that in, when we have negative symbols, we're going to put those in parentheses. And it's all over 8 plus 12, because that was C is equal to 8. I go ahead and do my order of operations, which gets me 3 times 16 over 20. So 48 over 20. When we go ahead and we do 48 over 20, right, 4 goes into 48 12 times, and 4 goes into that 5 times, giving us our answer of 12/5. Same deal over here. Wherever we see an m, we put 2. Now this is saying 10 times m. So 10 times 2 minus 8 times negative 3 squared, and that's the absolute value. So when we're done dealing with everything in the absolute value, if it's negative, it'll just be the positive answer, and if it's positive, you can just remove the bars. All right, so this gives us 10 times 2. Oh, we should deal with that exponent first, right? So that'll get us 10 times 2 minus 8 times 9, and that's the absolute value of that. 10 times 2 is 20 minus 72, and the absolute value, that's a negative 52 absolute value, which is just, 52. All right, why don't you try 9 and 10 on your own, and I'll be back in a sec when you hit start again. All right, so I'm going to do some substitutions. Minus. Now, that negative sign is not part of this. It's just 5 squared plus 7 times y is negative 9 plus 2 minus 1. Deal with my exponents first, right? So it's negative 25. All right, this exponent is only attached to this x, not the negative sign. If it was all in a parenthesis, then it would be negative 5 times negative 5. Plus 7 times negative 9 plus 2, right, is negative 7 minus 1. Deal with our multiplication first. Negative 25 plus negative 49 minus 1. Right now we're all addition and subtraction. So it gets us negative 74 minus 1 is negative 75. All right. All right, so on to number 10. Where we see an r, we see a 5, so 3 times 5 minus 4 times the dreaded fraction of 2/3. Well, 3 times 5 is 15, and this is really 4 over 1, so 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 3 is 3. We have to find common denominators. Well, we know this is 1, so we just multiply everything by 3, right? So this will give us 45 over 3 minus 8 over 3. 45 minus 8 is 37 over 3. And that's it. We're done. All right, on to number 11. You can go ahead and try 11, 12, 13, 14 by yourself. Stop at 15 and we'll go over that again. All right, so we're back. Number 11, we're going to do some substitution. Wherever we've seen x is negative 6, so negative 6 all squared. Now notice, the negative sign is in there, so we're good to go. It's going to be negative 6 times negative 6. Y squared, that's the absolute value, minus negative 6 times 8. All right, dealing with absolute value first. All right, negative 6 times negative 6 is 36. That's the absolute value of 36 minus, not y, it's 8. Minus 64, absolute value. Well, negative 6, negative 6, two negatives make a positive, so that'll be 6 times 8. Well, so 36 minus 64, what is that? 28. So it would be negative 28, and the absolute value of negative 28 is just 28, and 6 times 8, 6 times 8 is 48. And when we take 28 plus 48, we get 76. Right, on to number 12, 2/5 times a, which is 3, plus 2 times b, which is negative 4. And that is all squared. When we go ahead and start dealing with parentheses first, you get 2/5 times 3 minus 8. 2 times negative 4 is 8, all squared. 3 minus 8, right? 2/5 negative 5 squared is 25. So it gives us 2/5 times 25. Well, that would be 50 over 5, which equals 10. All right, so number 12, we wound up with 10. 13, 2 cubed minus 4 times 18 all over the square root of 2 times 18. All right, 2 cubed is 8. So that gets us 8 minus 4 times 18. Well, 4 times 10 is 40. 4 times 8 is 72. All over 2 times 18 is 36. So the square root of 36 is 6. All right, everyone with me so far? So this would get a negative 64 over 6. Well, how does that work out for us? Well, we know 2 goes into both of them, so it goes negative 32 over 3, and we're done. All right, 2 times 1/4 squared plus 9 times 1/4. Let's deal with this 1/4 squared. So 1/4 squared is just 1/4 times 1/4, which is 1/16. So 2 times 1/16 plus 9 over 4. Well, this will give us 2/16 plus 9 over 4. Well, we know that we don't have common denominators. 4 goes into 16 4 times. So that just gives us 2 over 16. 4 times 9 is 36 over 16. And that gives us 38 over 16. We could divide that by 2 and get 19 over 8. All right, so that is 11 through 14. All right, so now we're into simplifying expressions. So simplify each expression below by distributing and or combining like terms. So that means when we just get simplify, we're not solving it, we're just combining our like terms. Now remember, like terms are anything where either it's a constant, so constant, right, that just equals some number, a variable, right, which is a letter. Now it's a letter with, right, the same exponent. So like terms would be like x squared, 3x squared, right? If you added those together, you'd have 4x squared. But x squared plus x, right, that's a no. Those do not go together. So let's look at it. When I look at this, I like to use highlighters for this stuff. I think it's easier. See how I have constants here. Then I have x's here. And they have the same exponent. So when I do this, I have a positive 16x minus 7x. So that gets me a 9x. Negative 11 plus 10 gives me negative 1, and I'm done. When I come over here, right, first I want to distribute. I have to do my order of operations. Once I get rid of all when I'm just left with the basic stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute this out. So 13 plus 6n minus 14 plus 19n. So now I can do a little bit of my highlighting. I see I have a constant there and a constant there. And then I have that there. All right, excellent. So that being said, I can go ahead and have I'm going to always deal with your variables first, whatever's the highest degree. So positive 6n, positive 19n gets me a 25n. 13 minus 14 gets me negative 1. And I'm done. All right, why don't you try 17 through 20, see if you can get those down. Hit pause, and I'll be back in a sec. All right, 17, we're going to start by distributing. Gets us 6c minus 12 minus, well, when you see this negative sign in front of the parentheses, we're going to distribute the negative sign, 8c minus 1. We see we have an 6c minus 8c, and negative 12 minus 1, so that gets us negative 2c minus 13. Over here, right, we have y's and z's. Well, y's go with y's, z's go with z's. Just if you want to highlight to help yourself keep track, that's always helpful. When I do this, now you like to go in alphabetical order, y before z, things like that. So negative 15, positive 1y gets us negative 14y. And negative 7z plus 2z plus 9z gets us plus 2z. I always put that little thing in the z because you see that my 2's and my z's look very similar. And we are done. Right? Number 19, we're going to go ahead and distribute this. Gets us 9a minus 15b minus a. It looks too much like a 9. Minus a. Then plus 7b. Our a's go together. 9 minus 1a is 8a. And 15 plus negative 15 plus 7 gets us a negative 8b. So you have 8a minus 8b. All right, over here, negative 8 times 2 gets us negative 16x minus 8y plus 15x plus 6y. All right, so we're going to do our x's first. So negative 16x, positive 15 just gets me a negative x. And then negative 8y plus 6y gets me a negative 2y. So I have negative x minus 2y. All right, so I kept it to about a half hour. I know I went really slow in the beginning. Anyone can speed it up if you know, moving forward, if you know what's going on, because we're doing a little review in the beginning, you can always go ahead and fast forward through it a little bit. I would recommend it whenever you hit a snag where your answer doesn't match my answer, go back and look at it. If not, you know, contact me or whoever your teacher is for this class for some more clarification if you need some. All right, so I hope everyone got a nice review and brought back some, you know, understanding of what's going on, and I will speak to you next time.